This the Black Powder Podcast. Kick up your feet, lean on your armrest, and get your mind blessed on this conquest. Hold a grip like a 12 gauge. Let this moment kick. Black people moving and having some gun ownership. I carry weight, not to keep the camera safe. It's thinking about you, my kids, and my parents' faces. The big topics they don't wanna involve us. Think we're novice, but now we're moving hard with revolvers. This the Black Powder Podcast. Let's get it started.
Primers hit, the powder's lit. It's time to get on target. Welcome to another episode of the Black Powder Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Yasuke Fett. And just a general reminder of your marching orders and why we have created the Black Powder Podcast. The main mission is to change the social view of black society and firearms. How do we do that? Glad you asked. We talk, walk, read, write, and think about it to find a better solution for a brighter future for the proper protection of black people. Join us through education, practice, and safety as we take down the stigma of black people and guns, one discussion at a time. And just a general reminder, you cannot do a mag dump without a couple of rounds. So if you like what you're hearing and you happen to like this show, send out an email to blackpowderpodcast@gmail.com and let me know what your favorite episode is. Whether or not you agree, disagree, or have questions, please make sure to send them to blackpowderpodcast@gmail.com. And always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. The only way to continue to grow is to continue to share this knowledge with other people. And the only way to even get the message out is to let everyone know. So once again, if you like what you heard and would like to continue to hear, please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, you can find us on multiple platforms, especially the main ones. As of recently, we are now on Spotify, Apple iTunes, Google Podcast, Amazon Music, and Audible.
Yeah, he would have what is it like? Things with what is like the I don't know, Chamber of Commerce, but he was having meetings with black businessmen, and not even to say that Stacey Abrams weren't doing those things, but she wasn't as focused on those things until she started polling bad with it, and also she spent more time with those bow tie liberals out in California and New York raising money. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And then by the time they realized that the focus should have been somewhere else, here in Georgia, it was too late. And, and also anybody here in the state of Georgia could have told you that Stacey Abrams wasn't going to win. You know what I mean? I mean, if anything, she should have skipped running this time and run, after 2026 when Kemp couldn't be governor again. But Georgia's not going to elect somebody who lost twice if she decides to do it again. You know what I mean? In 2026, I think her odds are even lower. You know what I mean?
She didn't fully lose because her main function and her main goal was to help get votes for Biden and help get more people out there. That was the main reason why she was running. Because it's like you got some of these governors or mayors or whatever, like say, for example, in New York, Chicago, even here right now with Andre Dickens, they're not going to be a long time. They're not going to be a permanent thing in office because as soon as they mess up one thing, that's it. And right now, with everything that's going on in Georgia, though, it's more than one thing that's been messed up. I can't go into full detail, but I guarantee you, and matter of fact, I would be shocked if Andre Dickens is still in office after it's his time.
Oh, you said you'd be shocked? Nah, I'm going the opposite way. I think Andre Dickens is gonna, he's gonna be able to ride it out. I mean, I think he's one of the best mayors that we've had in a long time. I think that he's the mayor that we need now. You know what I mean? But I mean, like I said, we've seen crazier things happen, but I think that Dickens has the advantage of you can actually see that he has the ability to work with the Republicans in this state and with the Democrats in these states. He's almost like a binder a little bit. He I don't know, I don't want to say he's not a tryhard. He's not super young, but he's not old, right? So that's something that people can kind of identify with. And the other thing is he kind of sticks to his guns on things. You know what I mean? So I don't know, he seems to be a little bit more energetic and more palatable than some of the mayors that we've had. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, but I
you know
still
what I
say
mean?
I will be shocked because there was he's done some things recently that's actually I don't know how much is going to affect the vote, but his actions are kind of chasing some Georgians away because they don't they don't want to turn Georgia into a New York or a Chicago. And
Oh,
let's just say
absolutely. Oh,
there's a certain
that's
amount of
true.
money he approved that would help us turn into a current New
Hey,
York / Chicago. About
that
7 million.
that's one of the things that kind of tanked Stacey Abrams is like Georgia. We don't want to be the California of the South. You know what I mean? And the people are like, no, like that they're not with it. But like understand, like Stacey Abrams had a lot of great ideas. You know what I mean? She had a lot of great ideas and great rhetoric. The only thing is, like, as a politician, the things that she was saying that she would do, she did not give the caveat that our legislature is comfortably in Republican control. So most of the stuff that she was saying, she wasn't going to get done anyway. But obviously, you can't run on saying that to people. You know what I mean? So, Georgia's definitely an interesting state. And I think that she did what she could as far as Biden was concerned. But even with Biden, I mean, Biden won the state by less than the amount of people that go to the bathroom in between quarters at a Falcon game, bro. So it's like Biden is not going to win Georgia. You know what I'm saying? 24. Like, if I
I would
had
be
to
shocked if he
bet,
wins anything right now because I mean
so, yeah. So, like, we the people who live in the state kind of get it, but the media wants to have narratives to have you tune in. It's a horse race. It's this or that, but I'm kind of with you on it. You know, Biden is looking like the crypt keeper nowadays, and just things don't look. I mean, if he coughs and has any type of medical emergency between now and election, he's 1,000% going to lose to anybody. You know what I mean? But anyway, we
yeah.
can get off these bozos, like you know what I mean. These politicians. I mean, we're already
I just know that
awash in that.
I need something that's like I need somebody who's actually gonna have some backbone and is willing to stand up to just like all sorts
You
of
have
crazy
to
stuff, man.
you have to have someone who gets into office that doesn't care about losing. I'm going to do the right thing. I don't care if I lose the
Hmm.
next election. But you don't really have those. People want to stay in some of these government positions. Hey, you get past that 5 year mark, you get that pension, bro.
Yeah, you got a bunch of people who are in business for themselves. That's the biggest
You
problem.
know what I mean?
And
True that.
I'm not saying we need like a warlord or anything, but I mean, at this point, it kind of would be nice to have somebody who's actually had some military background. But you know, you just got like a bunch of businessmen and women. But don't get me wrong. I mean, I understand that it's good to build up the economy and relationships of America, but at the end of the day, I mean, there's a lot of normal people that are not really getting tangibles from those business decisions that are being made by the politicians. Because end of the day, these politicians are going to sit back and say, "Well, we did the best we could. See you later." Then they go off in their mansion, and they try and virtue signal by I don't know, wearing stuff that says "Eat the rich" on it or whatever. Meanwhile, they're rich themselves. It's like
Yeah.
I think it was it King Edward II, or it was one of those European kings. I think they were English, where uh, they would dress like their uh, their civilians, right? So they go out amongst the common populace, dressed up as poor people, tattered clothes and everything else, and the populace would look at him and say, "He looks just like me. He actually cares." But the difference is when they close their doors, they go home to moldy bread and stale meat or whatever. When he
Yeah,
closes his
absolutely.
doors, he goes home to like mutton,
What,
freshly
what,
baked bread,
I know,
wine.
hardtack. Hey,
Yeah,
hey, listen.
yeah.
Well, I think at the crux of it also as well, it's special interest groups and money. Like a lot of these politicians' decisions and the votes that they make, the lobbying game in Washington is big time. When you're talking about state and local government, though, like a lot of these posts that people hold really don't pay a lot of money. maybe that goes, you've got it's high stress stuff. A lot of these people work part time, like in state governments, and the pay is pretty low because but like once you start getting into like the federal government and things, now granted, all politics is local. Like it's kind of important to pay attention to the things that are going on in your state, but
Mhm.
like I said, money and lobbying. You know what I mean? And I think that it would be helpful if you didn't have those things, but obviously those aren't things that politicians want to get rid of. You know what I mean? Well,
Yeah.
people have been screaming about the Citizens United decision, and corporations are people too, and all of this different stuff. And until you can get you can rein in the spending on campaigns. It should just be a cap. Everybody gets X amount. You can't go above this number. That's across the board. Now you've got to win on your messaging and the things that you actually do. Yeah, you know what I mean? That's the way
Yeah.
I feel like it should be, but it's not that way. But yeah, you know what it is. But I'm not gonna let them steal my joy, man, because regardless, you've got to adapt and keep it moving, but you have to pay attention enough where you can vote against things that aren't in your interest. The problem is these different political parties keep trying to tell the average person they know what's best in their interest and they don't know a damn thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. Shoot. Enough about politics.
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like that'll just eat everything up. But yeah, hey, we had a couple things to get off our chest, so it's all good.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, because my biggest thing is like because of if I was self-employed, it'd probably be different, but I'm not. So there's only so much I can say and talk about to the point where I'm like, gotta reel it back in. Can't talk about it. Gotta reel it back in because I know
Yeah.
one of the things I got to be careful with on my show is like the consequences of certain topics I might discuss. Because believe me, there's topics I would like to go full throttle on, but I got
Yeah.
to be a little bit more tactful and yeah. So
It's
it
not worth the
sucks
heartburn
sometimes.
sometimes.
It
Yeah,
ain't. It ain't.
exactly.
Take that
Sometimes it's just
Tums or
not
that
worth the
Midol or
heartburn.
whatever, Pepto Bismol.
Yeah, man. I hear you. Yeah, I get it. Believe me. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah. Cancel culture.
Uh,
Shoot. I guess last question, man. In your opinion, what role do you think competition shooting can play in promoting unity and understanding within Black society? And to be honest with you, like you've been so detailed with your answers to the point where I believe you answered this already, but I just want to make sure.
well,
So,
well, one of the cool things, like about like representation in the shooting sports, it's important. Obviously, you can draw more people into competitive shooting or into things like this if they have people who they identify with participating. And when it comes to getting into things like this, participation is something, and I think we talked about this before the show started. It's kind of something that you just have to do. I don't really want to say build up the courage to do, but sometimes that's what you have to do, because it's something that you've never done before. You don't really truly know what to expect until you actually get out there to do it. And this kind of ties into, like a lot of people in our community, we post videos of like our matches, and hopefully could get the reach to let folks know that one, that competitive shooting is a thing or tactical training is a thing. Show that we're also out here doing it as well. And, to ultimately just kind of encourage folks to come out and have, and have fun. And, sharing a common interest um, is something that can bring you together that's going to actually help you, one, to get to know your community more. And it can also open up other opportunities into other things to kind of build on things, to learn how to problem solve, to push your limits, to learn things like, de-escalation is also a part of, being a firearms owner, you know what I'm saying? And getting
mhm.
different perspectives from different people who are firearms owners, like learning the history of firearms and why firearms are important for the Black community, because, Black gun ownership um, isn't just a fad that started with COVID. The right bear arms for Black people goes back because we always didn't have the right to, have Second Amendment rights. You know what I mean? We weren't
Yeah.
always in a position where we could protect ourselves. And a lot of people think of the civil rights era as an era of, oh, we just wanted to sit down and, eat with white folks and be with white folks. The Second Amendment was part of that as well. Yeah,
Hmm.
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
I was
oh,
gonna
go
say,
ahead.
you go farther back, it's like there's three boxes we had to worry about: the ballot box, the bullet box, and the jewelry box.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And,
Hmm.
a lot of people just don't really, part of me just kind of feels like if I don't embrace my right to the Second Amendment, there were so many of us in the past that didn't have an opportunity to be able to protect themselves and to be on an even playing field with any and all manner of domestic threats. I damn near feel it's my duty to be proficient enough to be able to protect myself, my family, you know, and my friends. You know what I mean? It can lead our community into the importance of emergency first aid things like CPR and stop the bleed and situational awareness training. And those are things that I think are slept on a lot in our community because, there are some segments of the community where, you should know CPR and how to stop the bleed, and we live in this community, and, in communities and, in a world where, you know, people want likes over the ability to save someone's life. Like, how many videos have you seen of people shot, and how many of those videos have you seen of someone rendering first aid? You see what I'm saying? And
You
it's
know,
like,
I,
yeah,
so there was one in particular I remember. I think it was around 2020. Um, it was God, what was it? It was a gun store that had been broken into, and oddly enough, it was a white gun store. So the owners are white, so they're over here talking about the tactics that they applied. For their wounded, they were actually able to get a tourniquet. Just the full
yeah,
9 yards. And I guarantee you that you try and look for a video like that in the black sector of things, you're not going to find it, unfortunately. So I see what you're saying, and I agree with it. It definitely does have to
yes,
change. It needs to be implemented. Which reminds me, I
absolutely.
need, I need to try and reach out to learn CPR ATL because I just got certified recently, and I want to see if I can interview the person that was my trainer. I think that'd be you gave me a good idea. I think that'd be interesting to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Because getting someone on that can, because you're ultimately you're your own first responder. Police
Hmm.
and the EMTs, they're all reactive. Something has happened, and now they're reacting to it. So you're your own first responder as far as trying to protect yourself. But God forbid if something happens, you should be able to render aid to someone or yourself in a situation. You know what I mean? And I try to put people up on CPR and stop the bleed courses because they're out there, and some of them are free. Like the Self Preservation Society and Sylvester. I actually hired him to come to the place where I work. He's been out there 2 or 3 times teaching CPR, stop the bleed classes, wound packing and, how to put on bandages. Like, you have abbreviated stop the bleed courses, then you have the full courses, like where you get a
Yeah.
certificate. Um, and I do think that, the Black community and the easiest avenue is through like kind of gun ownership. You know what I mean? Because
Hmm.
that's where you meet the people who, lots of people just don't think about that. We kind of discuss, hey, um, you're proficient with your firearm because you actually use it. But when it comes to medical aid, all of this aid, CPR, stop the bleed, isn't even necessarily talking about someone getting shot. You could get in a car wreck and get something punctured and you're bleeding out trying to, you know what I mean, you're going to have to
Yeah.
like be able to pack that up. So people having the necessary aid materials like an IFAK, tourniquets, chest seals, Israeli, they call them Israeli bandages, which are the bomb. Like everybody should have those. You should have, like an IFAK. Most people in their cars, their first aid kit is like Band-Aids and Advil.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's
Like,
true.
no,
Yeah.
you should have multiple tourniquets. I keep, IFAK in my bag. I keep some of those materials in my car. Like everybody should have, you can never have too many tourniquets. You should have a tourniquet in your front seat. I mean, like, in your compartment, like maybe in your driver's side door, you should have a tourniquet in your panel. You should have a tourniquet in the back seat because guess what? Maybe you can't reach or open your panel in an emergency, like if you get in a car accident to get out a tourniquet or, things that you can like stop the bleed, so you might have to, if you have it in different places in your car, depending on the scenario, you've got more of a chance to get to those things. You have to learn to put on a tourniquet yourself. You know what I mean? You have to learn to put on a
One-handed
tourniquet.
sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Like those are things that are very important. People just don't realize, like bleeding. I think Sylvester was saying at one of our courses that, most of the people that die in accidents and all of these stuff is because they bled out and they didn't have you know, they didn't have the necessary things. So especially for like our community and just young people, like you know, getting them up on understanding, how to render aid to each other or even like a random person that might need it. You know what I mean? There are lots of organizations out there, like tourniquet companies. I'm trying to remember. Rhino Rescue, like they have a policy that if you ever have to use your tourniquet or the materials that you buy from them on yourself or somebody, they'll replace it for free. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
I was gonna
Like,
say because like I know I've got two tourniquets. One I always carry with me to work in my work bag, and the other one I always carry in my EDC bag. But admittedly, I think those tourniquets came off of Amazon. So as far as like their reliability, I do
yeah,
question it. I don't think.
yeah. Rhino Rescue, they're on Amazon as well. So I would say just get it. Like, always think Rhino Rescue because you have to think if you keep the tourniquet in your car, it's going through these
Oh
Georgia
yeah,
summers. It's hot.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And if your tourniquet, if it bends, that's not going to help you. You know what I mean? You need a firm tourniquet.
hmm
So, like, I'll give you a pro tip, and I'm going to give, during one of the trainings, Sylvester was saying, like, to look like at the tip of the tourniquet, there's, if it's like black, there'll be like a little fluorescent part at the tip. You know what I mean? And sometimes
hmm
if it just pulls apart and stuff like that, it's a bad tourniquet. Or
Oh
if you
shoot,
just
yeah.
if you grab the bar and just firmly try to bend it. If it bends any, you don't trust it. So Rhino Rescue, I can definitely co-sign them. Those where I get all of my tourniquets, and they've been in the cold. They have been out in the heat, and I try to take stop the bleed classes multiple times, a year. I've probably been to like over the last 2 years, I've probably been to six because I just want to get the practice. So if something happens, you have to think, the trauma that someone's going through that's hurt that you're trying to help. Well, guess what? Your anxiety is going to be up. You're going to be
Yep.
scared. You're going to forget some things too. You know what I mean? So it's
hmm
like the more that you get the reps, just like handling a firearm, the better chances you've got an opportunity to help. An individual. So yeah, like, go to the classes, they're available. We got True Prep, we got all these things down here. Like nobody really has an excuse because these classes are happening. You know what I mean? And there's nothing better than free.
Learn CPR ADL.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean,
So
I paid for that class. I think it was like 85, but it was worth it because it was a great company, great trainer, sponsored by the Red Cross.
oh
Um,
yeah.
and it was like thorough training to the point where I walked out there feeling confident in the abilities that I just received. So,
Yes.
like you said, you got to be willing to go out and put yourself in a situation where you can learn. Just
Well,
just go
and,
do it, as you said.
well, absolutely. And also like things like CPR, the more people that are around you that know it. See, one of the problems that I think that a lot of people have is like you could have 10 people in your crew, and like if you're the only person who knows CPR or how to use an AED, like a
Mm-hmm.
defibrillator or to stop the bleed, well, it's cool if you're around, but if something happens to you, you're assed
Yeah,
out. You
God
know what I
forbid.
mean?
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
you know
you're
what I
gonna have
mean?
somebody roll up. They're gonna attempt to give CPR to somebody, but at the end of the day, it's like they're
Yeah.
eating a chicken wing. They ain't gonna
And
save
so,
anybody.
yeah, exactly. So, like, to me, that's kind of like motivation to get the people that you're around to learn these things. I mean, everybody has parents, you know what I mean, or had parents at some point. Some people are fortunate to still have their grandparents. Well, guess what?
Hmm.
If your parents are still around, that should be enough reason for you to learn CPR. Even for
Right.
people that are like our age, people have cardiac arrests that are young. People have heart attacks that are young. But if you have loved ones or people that are in their, 50s, 60s, 70s up, I mean, it almost seems like negligence if you don't, you know what I mean? If
Yeah.
you're a caregiver and you don't know these things. So that's one of the great things also about the state of Georgia and Atlanta. You have like the Self-Preservation Society and Whitetail Tactical and all of these people who offer these things, and they're great people. They're great presenters. They're people. They're, what do you call them? Well, people persons or whatever they call it. They're very approachable. You know what I mean? And learning
Yeah.
CPR for babies and all of those things. Those things are important, and there's nothing that's worse than something happening. You can't do something about it, and then you realize that you could have. Yeah, you know what I mean. But
Yeah,
only
I've been
if
I've
you
been in that
haven't
situation.
trained.
That's
Yeah,
actually what
it's
made me go learn, become part of the CPR AED and adult first aid education, because seeing it actually happen in front of you, and the best thing you can do, which is still helpful, but nonetheless, the best thing you can do is go call 911 and try and provide the equipment or the aid that the certified people need. Once you get done
and
with that, all you're left doing is just standing there like, oh God, oh God, oh
yeah,
God, oh God, oh God, oh God. I hope he pulls through. And even
absolutely. Yeah.
Grady gives free stop the bleed classes. And Grady is like one of the number one what am I thinking of? The number one whenever it comes to dealing with bullet wounds or injuries
Oh
from being
yeah,
shot.
they're like the number one. They're like Grady is like. I know there was one point where I think I heard that like Grady was the top triage center in the United States,
Mm,
which kind of
yeah.
says something because it just means Atlanta off the chain. So I know they get to
Yeah.
practice. Yeah, you know what I mean. But
Yeah.
you know what I
But it's
mean.
true
But
though.
but like I mean, you're right. So to kind of get back to the question that you were saying about how things could be helpful. I mean, to me, I think that those are like some of the most important things. It's like communion, and then just having skills in the case of an emergency. Um, at some point in your life, everybody is going to have an emergency. Either you're going to have an emergency, or somebody that you know is going. That's guaranteed.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So you know, whenever you get the repetitions and go into these classes, it's to me, it's just beneficial to society as a whole. Because the cool thing about I keep mentioning Sylvester and the Self-Preservation Society is like his motto, for his company is lives over likes. You should be able to
Yeah.
save someone's life over trying to get likes on the unfortunate thing that happened to them. So I just, and once again, to kind of tie this back in, of how it could help our community, like I say, emergency preparation, community. And because from like our NAGA events, or like the Men's Day Out events, like we talk about things that go beyond firearms, but we always bring in those lessons to kind of tie into what we're doing on the range. And I,
Hmm.
I think that that's cool. It's just, getting out in your community and just knowing who's in it, and building bread, and it's like you're saying, networking is another thing. Lots of people have just networked through the 2A community on things that really have nothing to do with the Second Amendment. So it
This is
kind of
true.
opens, you know what I mean? So it kind of like opens up, different opportunities.
This the Black Powder Podcast, let's get explicit. We got the wisdom hitting targets with a marksman precision. We're having fun in the booth, we're running gun for the truth. Every future black gun owner, we're spreading the news. We do illegal, we're moving regal and blessing the people. Some hopes for the culture, we keep it locked like guns in our holster. Holding it down as we're loading the rounds. If they were nervous back then they're gonna be scared of us now. Black Powder Podcast, we'll be back in a while.